Nickelodeon was hiding a terrifying secret in plain sight. If you grew up in the 90s or early 2000s, Nickelodeon wasn't just a TV channel. It was a lifestyle. From Rugrats and Hey Arnold to All That, Are You Afraid of the Dark, and those classic slime moments. It felt like pure, innocent fun. But behind the orange logo and goofy game shows, there were secrets. Scandals involving the people behind your favorite shows, and stories that Nickelodeon worked hard to bury. Today, we're diving into the biggest controversies and cover-ups Nickelodeon never wanted you to know about. And honestly, it might ruin some of your childhood memories. If you're into uncovering the dark side of nostalgic TV, hit that subscribe button now. New videos like this drop every week, and you do not want to miss what's coming next. Let's jump in. To really understand how deep this goes, you need to know that Nickelodeon was always a little rebellious. In the 90s, it marketed itself as the anti-Disney. It wasn't polished, it wasn't proper. It was messy, weird, a little gross, and kids loved it. But that anything goes attitude behind the scenes, it created a culture where boundaries got pushed and sometimes crossed, and that's when things started getting uncomfortable. You can't talk about Nickelodeon's dark side without mentioning Dan Schneider. Schneider was one of the network's most powerful figures. The guy behind huge shows like All That, Kenan and Kel, The Amanda Show, Zoey 101, iCarly, and Victorious. On the surface, he seemed like a creative genius, but for years there were whispers about his behavior on set. Multiple actors and crew members later described Schneider as controlling, temperamental, and wildly inappropriate. And the weirdest part? He had a bizarre obsession with feet. If you go back and watch old episodes of iCarly or Victorious, you'll start to notice how often scenes focus on characters' feet. Kids drawing on their toes, licking their feet, zoom-ins on bare soles. And it wasn't subtle. By the 2010s, rumors about his treatment of young actors started circulating online. Former cast members hinted at their discomfort, while anonymous crew spoke out about abusive on-set behavior. In 2018, Schneider parted ways with Nickelodeon after an internal investigation. But here's the kicker. The network never publicly addressed the real reasons behind his exit. They issued a vague statement thanking him for his contributions, a major figure quietly removed, no questions asked. And it wasn't just background whispers. Several former Nickelodeon stars later came forward about how toxic the environment was. Amanda Bynes, whose component placement, one of Nickelodeon's biggest early stars, suffered a very public breakdown in the 2010s. And while a lot of focus was put on her personal struggles, very few talked about what she endured during her early career. Victoria Justice and other Victorious cast members hinted in interviews that there were things they weren't allowed to talk about from their time at Nickelodeon. Even Ariana Grande joked uneasily about the weird foot-focused content in old clips. The reality is, child actors in those productions were overworked, under-supported, and sometimes manipulated, all while network execs looked the other way. And once the scandals started bubbling up, Nickelodeon's strategy was clear: distance, deny, disappear. And Dan Schneider wasn't the only problem. In 2004, Nickelodeon producer Jason Handy was sentenced to 6 years in prison for child exploitation offenses. Handy worked on multiple Nickelodeon shows, including All That and The Amanda Show, and was caught with hundreds of illegal files and chat logs with underage fans. The kicker? Nickelodeon had received complaints about him years before his arrest, but kept him employed. And then there's Brian Peck, an actor and acting coach who worked with several Nickelodeon child stars, including on The Amanda Show. In 2004, he too was convicted on multiple abuse-related charges, yet the network stayed silent. They removed his name quietly from credits and promotional materials, but never issued a public statement. The pattern was clear. When something went wrong, they covered it up. So how did all this stay hidden for so long? Nickelodeon, like many major entertainment companies, operated with a culture of silence. Young actors, their families, and crew members were made to sign strict non-disclosure agreements, NDAs, and those contracts made it nearly impossible to speak out. For child actors chasing stardom, staying quiet often felt like the only option. Anyone who spoke up risked being blacklisted from the industry. And if complaints did get made, they were handled internally. Quietly, problems would go away, contracts would be terminated, and PR damage control would kick in. It was a system built to protect the brand, not the kids. In recent years, as more stories about Nickelodeon's dark past surfaced online, the network finally made small moves to acknowledge some of it, but very carefully. In 2021, iCarly star Janet McCurdy publicly revealed that she had been emotionally manipulated and exploited by an unnamed Nickelodeon executive, widely speculated to be Schneider. Her memoir, I'm Glad My Mom Died, described a deeply toxic environment where child actors were pushed beyond their limits for ratings. It became a bestseller and cracked open the conversation about how damaging the industry had been for so many of those young stars. Nickelodeon responded with, basically, silence. To this day, the network has never issued a direct apology to its former child actors. No public reckoning, just quiet settlements, private statements, and a lot of shows quietly pulled from streaming services. And here's the thing. Even though some of these scandals are decades old, their effects are still being felt today. Many of the child stars we grew up watching on Nickelodeon never fully recovered from those experiences. Some walked away from Hollywood altogether. Others have spoken about lifelong mental health struggles, anxiety, and the difficulty of trusting people in the industry. And while Nickelodeon eventually severed ties with some of the people responsible for these scandals, the network never truly owned up to the culture that allowed it to happen. No formal statement, no real accountability, and it makes you wonder, how many other stories never made headlines? How many other young actors went through things we'll never hear about? That's the darker side of nostalgic TV nobody wants to talk about. The same shows that made us laugh and gave us iconic catchphrases were produced in an environment that wasn't always safe, and sometimes downright dangerous. And even now, as new Nickelodeon shows hit streaming platforms and reboots try to recapture that 90s magic, that legacy still lingers just beneath the surface. It's a reminder that nostalgia can be complicated. The things we loved growing up, sometimes they came with a price. Nickelodeon wasn't just quirky kids' TV. It was a network with a dark, damaging history. It worked very hard to keep out of the spotlight. And the saddest part, so many of us grew up watching those shows, having no idea what the people behind them were dealing with. If you want to hear more untold stories from behind the scenes of your favorite childhood shows and the darker side of nostalgic TV, make sure you hit that subscribe button now. I've got more deep dives coming on 90s sitcom scandals, classic TV cover-ups, and child star tragedies you won't want to miss. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay nostalgic but stay curious.